Hello and welcome. Today we've got Marlo Fisken, an former USA and international pole dancing champion who's 35 plus years of dance training, 25 plus years of experience as a movement educator, and 18 years of a pole teacher and certainly an innovator. Welcome, Marlo.
Hello, I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So, just to kick things off, to get to know a little bit more about you, how did you start training pole? 35 to 25 years ago, 35 years ago, pole was not the big exploding thing it is now. How did you get started?
Well, pole was 19 years ago at this point.
Okay, okay. But still, you've
There
been a
are, but
mover for years.
importantly, though, there are people that have been doing it for that long. Like they do exist. They are out there, you know. So even 19 years of pole is pretty long, but it's been around. So yeah, I started as a child in your normal dance studio after school program, and then that eventually took me to going to an arts high school, which allowed me to train like 6 hours a day throughout high school. Moved to New York, was a professional mover there. And then eventually a friend mentioned they took a pole class, and I said, I need to find out what that's like. And I went to a class, and I both loved things about it and didn't like things about it. So I bought a pole and just took it into my own hands and started training and copying anything I could find on YouTube, which wasn't a lot at the time, and
Mhm.
combining the experience I had from the dance world. So I would blend different styles with the pole and experiment. And I knew from when I started that it was serious. Like I was set on,
This is it.
oh, I'm gonna, yeah, this is what I'm doing. And uncharacteristic of myself, I remember thinking like I'm gonna be one of the best in the world at this. And that's not a thought that I generally would have. But about that, I really did feel it and went straight
Yeah.
on that path at that time. Yeah.
You're like, this is it. I love it. It's my passion. I feel
Yeah.
it. Amazing. And for those who don't know who you are and your background, what is your dance background? Are you more of a ballet girly? Are you a modern? What was your pathway?
Yeah, I suppose I'm more of a like a fusionista, because you had to do them all growing up, but eventually my leaning was more towards contemporary forms, but like anything that involved moving in a lot of circles. And that has not changed. But I was in terms of my professional dance, I did more commercial work, which pretty meant that you could swap styles as
Right.
needed and dance for a number of Latin music artists, being a backup
Fun.
dancer. Yeah,
Yeah, love
yeah,
it.
yeah.
All right. So, what's exciting about it now? You've been doing it for 19 years. What's keeping you curious?
It's actually the missing gaps in what I would say are the more fundamental aspects of pole. So be that like patterns of moving through space and
Mm,
mapping um, possibilities of trajectories for movement that are really tend to be done in this one way. And I really love how there's many lifetimes worth of study on just re-exploring and changing combinations of these things that could be accessible to people who are in their earlier phases of pole, but they could be expressed through like elite level artistry and creativity. That also because it's friendlier on my body, and I don't have to take my pants off, which we love that. But that for sure. That and the things that take up a lot of low, wide space, which is kind of rare in pole studio. So when I have the room to do like low flow acro and play with momentum away from the pole and then connect to the apparatus, keep it going and let go. And I part of why I'm so interested in those is they're less commonly explored. And so this is what
mm,
I've done the whole time. I was like, look where there wasn't as much movement and yeah, navigate in those directions, along with making choices that I feel like my research can share. I can share it with more people and find more accessible options for how to play with pole than tends to exist because it
right.
tends to snowball into
I
like
see the more bendy, the more, yeah.
yes, into the greater extremes. And so I want to snowball it and like into just how actually easy it can be when it has this reputation as an extreme sport. I'm like, well, like it can be, but it like really doesn't have to be.
Very cool. Love it. I'm like, that's awesome. So, for the Circus Science Symposium, where you'll be joining us for the Artist Perspective panel on returning to training, we're going to do a little preview. So, what is one piece of maybe traditional wisdom about injury or recovery, and I'm using traditional wisdom in hard quotes here, that you had to unlearn through your journey, or you see your students having to unlearn? So, something that's kind of directed at artists or coaches that are listening.
Yeah, a lot of the work that I do with my clients comes down to cleaning up their mental representations of their structure and how they are moving those maps. And I'm really fascinated by the way that we build bodily maps as this aggregation of words that we've heard, images that we've seen, and we'll map it onto our structure, accurate or not. And sometimes we're
Interesting.
carrying around like the cues that we've heard, maybe like decades before, reciting them to ourselves and moving in accordance with the words that we heard, that's not necessarily in accordance with our structure. So I love this, finding this way to help educate people on, an anatomical model is a generality. It's not
Yep.
necessarily yours. And like,
Yep.
how can we get a real sense of where your bits are and how they seem to be working to clean up perception so that it's current, which is really helpful in terms of recovering from injury too, so that you're not operating from like a sort of like a nociceptive guarded way of moving, like update that or have more healthy caution where it would be important. And so some many of these phrases that people hear all the time, of course, some like erroneous scapular mechanic things, they're so embedded in
Right.
the self-cueing that people use that I like to clean up both the map and the languaging of the map that people use, which sounds incredibly heady, but in expressed, it actually comes expressed as much more embodied, continuous movement. So,
No, it's so great to think about it that way because you take, a maybe a teenage version of yourself where you've heard these cues or this understanding of your body, or you take an injured version of yourself that you've maybe been babying or caring for this injury for so long. It's like, oh, I can't do that on my bad side. It's like, what does that mean as you transition through this journey and come back? Fascinating. I think that's a really interesting and insightful one takeaway. So I love that. All right, now we're going to flip it around a little bit. For the clinicians that work with pole artists in particular, since that's really where you lie, but also in performing arts world, what is it that you think clinicians need to know, or what do you wish clinicians knew about working with artists?
yeah, well, I mean, it's still an artist is such an individual
Yeah.
person and experience, but I would nudge people towards not shying away from the educational component and finding out if
Mm,
somebody like, do you really want to like learn this? Because it can be more than just make me feel better, but an opportunity to grow. Because a lot of people that are working at the higher levels are also teachers themselves, and so people might not realize it, but the interactions that happen in a clinical environment, for better or for worse, probably start to come out in the way that people speak to their clients. And so you might consider, like, if people encounter very threat-based, fear-provoking language in a clinical environment, that might start to come through the way that they lead classes. So the more we can think about the language isn't just affecting the person in that moment, but like
mhm.
back to the maps.
Yeah,
I hear clients
it's
say,
like in there.
someone told me I have I was told I have tight hamstrings. And, like upon further investigation, that they've never taken it further, that maybe that's not even the case, but they agreed to hold that as an identity. So we have to be like really careful about what we say to people, especially that are so um well, their identity is largely tied to their movement capacity, again, for better or for worse. But
Yeah.
so the things that are said verbally can have a really important lasting impression, not just on the person you're treating, but on the people that they interact with and lead in movement.
I love this, Marlo. I think these are brilliant, brilliant ideas and thoughts around what it's like being a performing artist and what it's like working with them. So thank you so much for taking a few moments of your time to share some of that knowledge with you. I can't wait to learn more from you and to hear more about some of your journeys in your body and working with other artists in the field.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thank you.
Thank you so much.